Hello there, this is just some guy who makes videos, and today I thought I'd do a tier list of a bunch of Godzilla and Toho Kaiju. I have the whole tier list ready. I even have a not sure category for characters I don't recognize. So, anyway, enough of that, let's get into the tier list. First off, yeah, I don't know what that is. Amulek from Godzilla Dominion. Interesting design. It's very interesting how he's made out of a swamp, or that he makes his body out of a swamp, and the only real part of his body is his head. I think that's pretty interesting. Not really my favorite kaiju, but he's still pretty cool. B tier. Showa Anguirus. Pretty cool, much better than the Raids Again version, I can tell you that. He is simultaneously cute and intimidating. And he's also a really good buddy for Godzilla, so he's going in A tier. Bagan. Now, he hasn't appeared in a movie yet, but his abilities and design bring him up to A tier easily. Baragon. Probably one of the cutest kaiju. Now, if this was the GMK Baragon, I would have put it in A tier, but since it's the Showa one, it's going in B. Now, I still really like the Showa Baragon, it's just in a few shots he looks kinda funky looking, and his roar just does not fit him. The more high-pitched roar of the GMK Baragon fits him a lot better. Next up, we have the Barum from, I think it was Rebirth of Mothra 2? Not really interesting. E tier. This thing, not sure what that is. Batra. Not a fan of Batra, but his larval form is pretty cool, so B tier. Behemoth, D tier. I think he's pretty overrated. All he is basically just a giant woolly mammoth. He hasn't really done anything interesting. Biollante. Really interesting design. Really cool kaiju in general. I hope she appears in more movies. So A tier. GMK Mothra. Believe it or not, this is actually my second favorite Mothra design. My favorite being the Tokyo SOS design. This one is still really cool though. I love the feathery antenna and the purple eyes, and a bit of purple color on the wings as well. It makes this Mothra really stand out amongst the rest. So she's going in S tier. Camazotz from, I think it was one of those Kong Skull Island comic books. It's pretty cool. B tier. Giant Condor. S tier. But in all seriousness, D tier. Not very good, very fake looking, but I'm not putting him in F tier because I gotta admit, he is pretty funny. Digara from Rebirth of Mothra 2. A tier. I like his aquatic features. I just like aquatic kaiju in general. They're honestly my favorite type. This thing from that movie, I think it was called Diagoro vs. Goliath or something. This thing is just kind of ugly. E tier. Now this thing is atrocious. I think this is Diagoro or Diagora. I forgot his name, but my goodness, this design is atrocious. By far my least favorite Toho kaiju. Yes, even more than Manila. I like Manila a lot more than this hideous abomination. F tier. Deskidora. The first four-legged Ghidorah. He was pretty cool in the movie. Not my favorite Ghidorah, but he's still awesome. A tier. The Aggregate Destroya, I think this is. Yeah, this is the Aggregate Destroya. C tier. If it was the perfect form Destroya, it would easily go in A. Not sure what that is. Dogora. C tier. He's alright. The Dorat. Now they are simultaneously cute and ugly. I like him, but I also don't like that in the movie this is what Ghidorah originally was. So, C tier. I think they're alright. No idea what that is. Final Wars Ebirah. Hold on. Oh! Messed up my screen for a bit. There we go. Yeah, believe it or not, Final Wars Ebirah is actually my favorite kaiju in the entire Godzilla franchise. Aside from Godzilla himself, of course. And that is due to several factors. One, I've always thought lobsters were just really, really cool. Second of all, Ebirah was the first kaiju I ever saw Godzilla fight, so he has a special place in my heart. And third, man, the Final Wars Ebirah has probably one of the coolest kaiju designs of all time. They took the Showa Ebirah design, which was also really, really cool, and turned it into this beast. It somehow looks even more monstrous than the Showa Ebirah, but also a lot more accurate to real-life lobsters. The sounds he makes, too, are just really fitting for him. And I know he did get defeated by mutants, but that's not gonna stop me from loving him. He's still awesome, and I'm pretty sure he's gonna stay as one of my favorite kaiju for a while. Fairy Mothra, not as good as regular Mothra, but it's cute, so B tier. The female Muto, definitely one of my favorite original MonsterVerse kaiju. She was a very devoted mother. I can respect that, even if she was the villain. A tier. Don't know what that is? Frankenstein. From Frankenstein vs. Baragon. No, he is... I like how they made him more of a sympathetic monster, and the humanoid design really reflects that. But, in my opinion, he's just kind of too human, so he just doesn't even really feel like a kaiju. I'll put him in C tier, he's alright. Gabara. Now, believe it or not, I actually don't hate Gabara. There's aspects about his design that I like his green skin, the angry cat-looking face, the horn on his, the moon-shaped horn on his head, and his pointy ears. There are some aspects about Gabara I like. Although I do not like his roar, I find his roar to be very annoying. The orange hair on his head just really clashes with the ears and horn. And his skin just is like really gross and bumpy. Overall, I don't hate Gabara, but he's definitely not a great kaiju. So he'll go in C tier. Gyra from War of the Gargantuas. It kind of solved my problem I had with Frankenstein. I thought Frankenstein was just too human. And while Gyra definitely looks a lot less human, still just... it still looks too human to me. But War of the Gargantuas was a cool movie, and I do like how they portrayed the two Gargantuas, so he'll go in B. Ganymes, my favorite out of the Yogg trio from Space Amoeba. Like I said, I just like crustaceans, so he's gonna go in A tier. This thing that Belvira rides on in the Rebirth of Mothra trilogy is alright. C tier. Gazora from Godzilla. I don't know why they use the Godzilla version, but oh well, I won't question it. B tier, he's pretty cute. This thing from Rebirth of Mothra 2, that hideous hairball that pees all over people. F. It's over. These two are probably my two least favorite Toho kaiju. They're just absolutely atrocious. This thing, don't know what that is. Final Wars Gigan. S tier. I mean, come on, where else would I put him? Everyone loves Final Wars Gigan. Showa Godzilla. I do really like Showa Godzilla, but not this particular design. I think he looks too much like a frog. But he's still pretty lovable. So, you know what? C tier. Skeleturtle. This is pretty useless. E tier. The Godzillasaurus from Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. It just looks too much like a regular dinosaur in my opinion. They didn't try to make it look too special. D tier. Goliath from the same movie this guy is in. Again, just not really a good looking kaiju. I like the horn he has and the kind of pig nose, but overall he's just very generic. E tier. Gorosaurus. He is very cool in his movies. I do like his drop kick move and the blade he has on the end of his tail. But again, he looks just kind of too much like a regular dinosaur. I think they could have done a lot more to make him stand out more amongst the other kaiju. But he's still cool. B tier. Okay. The Griffin from Latitude Zero. Nothing special. D tier. Final Wars Hedorah. A tier. Even though he didn't do a lot, he just looks really cool. The Hellhawks from Godzilla vs. Kong. C tier, they're alright. No idea what that is. Male Muto. Not as good as the female Muto, but still cool. Hello? Okay. Jet Jaguar Beta. B tier. Definitely a lot better than the first Jet Jaguar. Kaiser Ghidorah. In my top 3 favorite Ghidorah designs, definitely, so he's going in S tier. By the way, the screeches he makes are just really cool and fit his design. The OG Kamacuras from Son of Godzilla. Now, even though I do prefer the Final Wars version a bit more than this one, I still think he looks really cool. I like how both of his arms look different, like one is a sickle shaped and the other is spear shaped. And it is interesting that they went more with a brown color instead of the regular green color that praying mantises are known for. And it is really kind of cool how there's many of them in the movie and they work together to try to eat Manila. And praying mantises are easily one of my favorite bugs. So A tier. Kamibes. Probably my least favorite out of the Yog trio. I don't know, he just never really stood out to me that much. C tier. King Caesar. Very goofy and just kind of dumb looking, but he's awesome in the movie. A tier. Showa King Ghidorah. I know it's the first King Ghidorah, but not the biggest fan of it. B tier. I just think that the heads just wobble around too much. The Toho Kong. He looks very ugly, but in the movie that he was in, the original King Kong vs. Godzilla, he was very, very fun to watch. And his fight with Godzilla was one of the best in the series. Easily. So B tier. Yeah, don't know what that is. Don't know what that is. Kumanga. I've always thought that spiders were really cool. So, she's going in A tier. Mothra Leo. Not as good as the regular Mothra. I've always preferred Mothra as a female. But Mothra Leo is still pretty cool. I like all of his unique abilities and forms. So A tier. Don't know what that is. Doug. Don't know what that is. Baguma. Interesting that they went with a walrus out of all creatures. I do know that he's a reptile, but I still call him a walrus. I mean, look at those tusks. You really call that a reptile? C tier, he's alright. This thing, that drawing from Godzilla vs. Gigan. Yeah. Shoamanda. Shoamanda's pretty cool. I like how they base them off of Eastern dragons. The whiskers and mane he has on his back make him look very mystical. Not my favorite Manda. I mean, if he was the Final Wars Manda, he would have easily gone in S tier. But despite my problems with the original Manda, At least it's not the one from Destroy All Monsters. So B tier. No idea. No idea. No idea. Matango. Not really a kaiju, but it's pretty cool. B tier. Mechanicong. B tier. I just wish they would have given him more weapons. Would have made him a much more formidable opponent. Not sure that is I think the Mega Nulon from Godzilla vs. Megaguirus. B tier. They're kind of creepy in the movie. Speaking of creepy, there's Megaguirus, by far one of the most terrifying looking kaiju ever seen on screen. And probably one of the most evil and murderous kaiju ever seen on screen as well. I like all her unique abilities, and that her design is like a combination of both insects and reptiles. I've always thought she was really cool. So, not B, A tier. Methuselah. Even though we haven't seen him do a lot, he looks pretty cool, so B tier. Showa Mechagodzilla! S tier, easy. The second best Mechagodzilla. Megalon. He's an idiot, but I love him. A tier. Manila. Now, even though I hate the design, and I will admit he is pretty annoying, I mean, he is an important part of Godzilla history. He's the reason that a lot of kids started to become Godzilla fans. The Son of Godzilla was really where the Godzilla franchise was starting to appeal to kids. I mean, if it was Final Wars, yeah, I would have put him in C tier. But since it's a Showa one, I'll put it in E. He's not as bad as people say, but I'm still not a fan of him. Mecha King Ghidorah. Very interesting that he's just partially mechanized. Oof, I stuttered there for a second. I like how they went for that instead of just fully mechanized. It makes him look a lot cooler and makes him more unique. So A tier. Mogira. I feel like I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this, but I don't care. A tier. I think Mogira is very cool and an interesting mech. Monster X. Now, even though he does not look like a Godzilla monster at all, I think that he really fits in the world of Final Wars. I think it's really interesting that they gave him a humanoid design. He's just very intimidating, and his fight with Godzilla is easily one of the best in the series. So, he's gonna go in a well-deserved S tier. And I even like him more than Kaiser Ghidorah. Mothra Larva. I think that the Mothra Larvas are just kind of a bit too simple for me. C tier. I think they could do better. This thing, no, it looks interesting, but don't know what it is, so not sure. This thing, its name starts with an N. It's from one of the MonsterVerse comics. D tier, not a fan of its design. Not sure what that is. The giant octopus from King Kong vs. Godzilla, Frankenstein vs. Baragon, and War of the Gargantuas. Despite it being a giant octopus, I think that he is honestly kind of creepy in the movies. They portray him as being a very creepy and formidable creature. And octopi in general are just really cool, so B tier. Orga. I'd say B tier. I just don't find him as interesting as some of the other kaiju, but I still like him. Not sure what that is. The giant rats from Latitude Zero. D tier, nothing too special. The Showa Rodan. And my gosh, look at that face. He looks like he's on every single drug at once. The body design for the Showa Rodan, though, is decent, so it's gonna keep him at C tier. You hear that? Meth Head, you've been saved. Those crab-looking things from Godzilla vs. Kong, E tier. Salunga, basically just the cooler version of Gabara, A tier. What's his name? Sanda from War of the Gargantuas. My opinions, on him are basically the same as Gyra, except I like Sanda a bit more. B tier. Scylla, not a big fan of Scylla. C tier. I don't know why I don't really like Scylla. I just never really cared for her. The giant sea serpent from King Kong Escapes. E. It's just really boring. Don't know what that is. Space Godzilla. Well, I do think the crystals on his back look a bit goofy. In the movie, he's really cool, and I love his abilities as well, so A tier. The Shakiras from Return of Godzilla. D tier. They were creepy in the movie, but other than that, not very interesting. That one, another drawing from Godzilla vs. Gigan. Yeah. A Skullcrawler. Okay, now, this is where I'm gonna get a lot of hate. Personally, I do not like the Skullcrawlers at all. Their screeches are really annoying. Their designs are just really bland, boring, and they really just exist to get their butts kicked. So, I know a lot of people are gonna hate me for this, but honestly, I don't care. F tier. Is that a Sphinx? Tiamat. My favorite kaiju in the Monsterverse. Favorite original kaiju in the Monsterverse. S tier, easily. She's a lot like Manda in that way, so maybe that's why I like her so much. Titanosaurus! Titanosaurus, I love Titanosaurus. S tier. Easily one of the most underrated and underappreciated kaiju. What? A Triceratops? It's not even a kaiju. Same with the T-Rex. Not sure what that is. Varan. Very cool design and abilities, but he hasn't really done a lot in order for me to put him higher. Oh, so B tier. I still like him. The vampire plant. I think that's the vampire plant from Mothra. F. Don't know what that is. That is the, I think, yeah, that's the war bat from Godzilla vs. Kong. D tier, never really found him that interesting, although the head design is kind of cool. I think that's something from the anime trilogy. Don't really know, so I'm not sure. And then finally, the Zilla from Final Wars. Now, as a Godzilla design, I think Zilla is absolutely terrible, but as its own monster, I actually kind of like it. So, you know what? B tier. I'm gonna be nice to Zilla today. So, that's basically it. Just trying to let you get a good look at this tier list one last time. And that'll be it. Bye-bye.